The cathedral bells rang through Manhattan like a death toll. Ethan Vel stood at the altar, his platinum cufflinks catching the light streaming through stained glass windows. 10 years. 10 years of hostile takeovers, strategic alliances, and sleepless nights building an empire for one purpose: destroying Leonard Delacqua, the man who murdered his family's legacy. His steel-gray eyes fixed on the oak doors. Around him, New York's elite whispered about the wedding of the century, the union that would end Wall Street's most bitter feud. They had no idea they were watching the final move in his game. The doors opened. Isabelle Delacqua appeared in ivory silk and Belgian lace, dark hair swept into an elegant chignon. Her chocolate eyes met his across the cathedral as she walked alone down the aisle. Her father refused to give her away to his sworn enemy, even for their strategic merger. Ethan's jaw tightened watching her approach. Beautiful, yes, but beauty was irrelevant. She was Leonard's daughter, his weapon, his target. When she reached him, Isabelle lifted her veil and looked directly into his eyes. No fear, no uncertainty, only quiet acceptance that unsettled him more than tears ever could. The ceremony proceeded like choreographed warfare. Ethan recited vows with boardroom precision, promising to love and cherish the daughter of the man he despised most. Then Isabelle spoke, her voice soft but steady. "I promise to stand by you, Ethan, through whatever comes. I'll give you all of myself, completely and without reservation." Her words carried an undertone that tightened his chest. He pushed the feeling aside. This was business. The ring exchange was swift. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Ethan leaned down for what should have been a brief, perfunctory kiss. But when his lips met hers, something electric passed between them that had nothing to do with his carefully laid plans. He pulled back quickly, disturbed by his body's betrayal. At the plaza reception, crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in finest linens. Ethan played the devoted groom flawlessly, while Leonard Delacqua sat at the head table, his weathered face a mask of barely contained fury. Ethan savored every uncomfortable moment. "Congratulations," Leonard said when cameras weren't rolling, approaching Ethan near the bar. His voice dripped venom. "You think you've won something, don't you?" Ethan's smile was razor-sharp. "I've won everything, Leonard. Your daughter, access to your company's board, and the perfect position to watch your empire crumble from the inside." "Isabelle is stronger than you think," Leonard warned. "She's not the fragile flower you believe her to be." "We'll see," Ethan replied coolly, watching his new wife gracefully navigate conversations across the room. She seemed to glow under attention, but her smile never quite reached her eyes. Finally, the last guest departed. They sat alone in the back of his Bentley, heading to his penthouse. The partition was up. Silence stretched between them as city lights blurred past tinted windows. "The performance is over," Ethan said, loosening his tie. "You can drop the act now." Isabelle turned to look at him, her wedding dress rustling against leather seats. "What act?" "The blushing bride. The loving wife. We're alone now." She was quiet for a long moment, studying his profile in the dim light. "Is that what you think this was? An act?" Her question caught him off guard. He'd expected relief, maybe defiance. Instead, she seemed genuinely curious. What else would it be? His voice came out harder than necessary. Isabelle turned back to the window, watching the city pass. "I suppose we'll find out." At his penthouse, Ethan watched as she took in the stark modern space. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a spectacular view of Manhattan, but the apartment itself was cold. All sharp angles and expensive minimalism. It reflected nothing of warmth or personality, much like himself, he realized. Isabelle slipped off her heels and walked barefoot across marble floor to the windows. Her reflection looked fragile against the glittering city, but something in her posture suggested hidden strength. "It's beautiful," she said without turning around. "It's strategic," he corrected. "The best view of the city I intend to own." She turned then, and the look in her eyes made his breath catch. No judgment, no fear of his ambitions, only deep sadness that seemed to reach into his chest and squeeze. "Ethan," she said quietly, walking toward him, "I need you to know something." He stood perfectly still as she approached, every instinct screaming to maintain distance. But she didn't stop until she was close enough that he could smell her subtle perfume, could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. "I know why you married me," she whispered, placing her hand gently on his chest. I know this is about revenge." The admission should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like the ground shifting beneath his feet. Ethan's mask slipped for just a moment before he regained composure. "Then you know this marriage is purely transactional." "I know that's what you tell yourself," Isabelle replied, her hand still resting over his heart. "But I also know something else." He wanted to step back, but something in her voice held him frozen. "What?" "I know you've been watching me for months before you proposed. Not for business reasons, because you were trying to understand me." Her fingers moved slightly against his chest. His pulse quickened. "You had investigators gather information about my daily routines, my favorite coffee shop, the books I read. But you never acted on any of it until now." The accuracy sent a chill down his spine. She was right. He had been watching her, studying her, telling himself it was strategic intelligence gathering. But somewhere along the way, it became something else. "That was research," he said, conviction lacking. "Was it research when you sent flowers to my apartment after my mother's death anniversary? Anonymous flowers that happened to be her favorite white roses?" Ethan's jaw tightened. He'd done that on impulse. A moment of weakness when he'd seen her leaving the cemetery with tears streaming down her face. "How did you know that was me?" Isabelle smiled sadly. "Because nobody else knew they were her favorite. Nobody else would have cared." She stepped closer, closing the final distance between them. "So tell me, Ethan, if this is just revenge, why did you learn everything about me? Why did you send flowers on the hardest day of my year? And why," she placed her other hand on his chest, "is your heart racing right now?" He had no answer. For the first time in 10 years, Ethan Vel was speechless. 3 weeks into their marriage, Ethan still couldn't predict Isabelle. She didn't demand anything. Didn't complain about the cold penthouse or his long hours at the office. She simply existed in his space like morning light, soft and unavoidable, slowly warming everything she touched. It unnerved him. He stood in his home office at midnight, reviewing documents that would initiate the hostile takeover of Delacqua Industries' pharmaceutical division. The first real blow, his hand hovered over the signature line when Isabelle appeared in the doorway, wearing one of his dress shirts, her legs bare, hair loose around her shoulders. "You're still awake," she said softly. "Work never sleeps." He didn't look up from the papers. She crossed the room, bare feet silent on hardwood, and set a cup of coffee beside him. Black 2 sugars. Exactly how he took it. He'd never told her that. "You've been staring at the same page for 20 minutes, she observed. Perching on the edge of his desk, Ethan finally looked up, irritated that she'd noticed. "It's a complex deal. It's the takeover of my father's pharmaceutical division." Her voice held no accusation, just quiet certainty. "The patents for the cancer treatment protocols." His fingers tightened on the pen. "How did you know?" "Because it's what I would do." Isabelle picked up the document, scanning it with practiced eyes. "Hit him where it hurts most. The division my mother built before she died. The one thing he actually cares about besides money and pride." She set the papers down and met his gaze directly. "It's a good strategy, Ethan. Ruthless but effective." He searched her face for anger, hurt, anything that made sense. Found nothing but calm understanding. "You're not going to try to stop me?" Isabelle smiled sadly. "Would you stop if I asked?" "No." "Then why waste the words?" She slid off the desk. "But you should know the patents expire in 6 months anyway. My father's been trying to extend them through legal loopholes, but it won't work. You'll spend millions acquiring a division that's about to lose its primary value." Ethan stared at her. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," she said, walking toward the door, "I'd rather you destroy him efficiently than waste resources on a symbolic gesture. If you're going to take everything from him, at least do it right." She paused at the doorway, looking back. "The real target is the biotech subsidiary in Switzerland. That's where the next generation treatments are being developed. That's what will actually break him." Then she was gone, leaving Ethan alone with his coffee, and the sudden realization that his wife had just handed him the key to total victory, against her own father. The next morning, Ethan found Isabelle in the kitchen making breakfast. Sunlight streamed through the windows, catching highlights in her dark hair. She looked peaceful, humming softly as she flipped an omelet. Why did you help me last night? He asked without preamble. Isabelle didn't turn around. Because my father destroyed his own legacy the day he let his pride matter more than his family. He deserves what's coming. That's not an answer. She plated the omelet, adding fresh herbs with careful precision, then finally faced him. My mother built that pharmaceutical division to help people. She was brilliant, compassionate, everything my father wasn't. When she died, he turned it into just another profit machine. He gutted her research programs, fired her team, and buried everything she stood for under quarterly earnings reports. Her eyes held a hardness Ethan hadn't seen before. So yes, I'll help you destroy him. Because maybe, just maybe, you'll do something better with what's left. She handed him the plate, her fingers brushing his. Or maybe you won't. Maybe you'll be just as bad. But at least I'll know I tried to salvage something from the wreckage. Ethan took the plate, studying her face. You're not what I expected. Neither are you, Isabelle replied. You think you're this cold, calculating machine? But you sent white roses to a stranger's apartment because you saw her crying. That's not revenge, Ethan. That's empathy. Don't mistake one moment of weakness for character. It wasn't one moment. She stepped closer. You've been leaving anonymous donations to my mother's cancer research foundation for 3 years. I found the records last week. His jaw clenched. That was strategic investment. In a non-profit organization? She raised an eyebrow. With no expectation of return? That's called charity, Ethan. Or more accurately, that's called grief. The words hit harder than any boardroom confrontation ever had. You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? Isabelle's voice softened. Your parents died in a medical trial that failed because Delacqua Industries cut corners on safety protocols. Your mother had the same cancer mine did. The foundation I run, the one you've been funding, is developing the treatment that might have saved them both. The room tilted. Ethan gripped the counter. How long have you known? Since before you proposed, she admitted. I knew why you hated my father. I knew what you were planning, and I said yes anyway. Why? Isabelle reached up, cupping his face with both hands, forcing him to look at her. Because someone needs to stop him. Because those patents and protocols and profit margins represent real people dying while my father hoards research for stock prices. And because... Her voice dropped to a whisper. I saw your face at my mother's funeral. You stood in the back, thinking no one noticed. But I saw you crying for a woman you'd never met. Mourning a loss you understood too well. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I knew then that whatever revenge you planned, it came from a place of deep pain. And I thought, maybe if I could be close to you, I could help channel that pain into something that actually matters. Something my mother would have wanted. Ethan's carefully constructed walls cracked. 10 years of cold calculation, of strategic planning, of burying every human emotion beneath layers of corporate warfare. And this woman had seen straight through it all. You married me knowing I intended to destroy your family. I married you hoping you'd destroy the right parts, she corrected. The cruelty, the greed, the corruption, but maybe save the pieces worth saving. The research, the people who still believe in my mother's vision. She pulled his forehead down to rest against hers. Use me, Ethan. Use my knowledge, my access, my name. Burn it all down if you have to. Just promise me you'll build something better from the ashes. He should have pulled away, should have maintained distance, control, the upper hand. Instead, Ethan wrapped his arms around her and held on, like she was the only solid thing in a world that had just shifted. Beneath his feet, I don't know how to be anything but angry, he admitted, against her hair. Then be angry, Isabelle whispered back. But be angry at the right things. And let me stand beside you while you fight. They stood there as morning light filled the kitchen, two broken people holding each other together. Ethan's phone buzzed. A message from his attorney, Leonard Delacqua, requesting emergency meeting. Says he has information about Isabelle you need to know. His blood went cold. Leonard Delacqua's office occupied the entire top floor of his Manhattan headquarters. Dark mahogany, leather chairs, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city he'd built his empire upon. Ethan had been here once before, years ago, when he'd tried the legal route to justice. Leonard had laughed him out of the building. Now Ethan sat across from his father-in-law, studying the man who'd destroyed his family. Leonard looked older than his 62 years, face lined with stress and too many scotches. "Thank you for coming," Leonard said, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey. "You said you had information about Isabelle." Ethan's voice was ice. Straight to business. "I respect that." Leonard pushed a folder across the desk. "Though I suppose we're family now." "We'll never be family." Leonard's smile was bitter. "No, I suppose not." He gestured to the folder. "Open it." Inside were medical records, legal documents, and photographs spanning years. Ethan's hands shook as he read, his world cracking with each page. "You're lying." "I wish I was," Leonard said quietly. "Believe me, son, I really do. Don't call me that." Ethan stood, the folder falling to the floor, papers scattering. "This is fabricated. Another one of your manipulations. The documents are verified. I can give you the contact information for every doctor, every hospital, every witness." Leonard's voice held no triumph, only exhaustion. "I'm telling you this not because I want to, but because you deserve to know what you've gotten yourself into." She would have told me. Would she? Leonard poured himself another drink. "My daughter is many things, Ethan. Brilliant, compassionate, strategic. But she's also spent her entire life playing chess while everyone else plays checkers. She learned from the best, after all." He gestured to himself with dark humor. "Everything I did for her. Every corner I cut, every moral line I crossed, was to build something she could inherit. Something that would give her power in a world designed to take it from women like her. And she hated me for it." Leonard's eyes were red-rimmed. "So when she came to me 6 months ago with a plan to marry you, to help you destroy everything I'd built, do you think I was surprised? No, I was proud. She'd finally learned the most important lesson. Love is weakness, but strategy is power." Ethan felt sick. "You're saying she's been playing me from the beginning." "I'm saying my daughter saw an opportunity and took it, just like I taught her." Leonard met his gaze. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" Ethan burst through his penthouse door hours later. Isabelle sat curled on the couch reading. She looked up, smiling, but the smile died when she saw his face. "Ethan, what happened?" He threw the folder at her feet. Papers scattered across the floor like fallen leaves. "When were you going to tell me?" Isabelle's face went pale as she recognized the documents. Her hands trembled as she picked up the medical records. "He told you. Everything." Ethan's voice was raw. "The tumor, the prognosis, the fact that you have maybe 6 months to live." Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't speak. "Was any of it real, Isabelle? Or was this whole thing just another strategy? Marry the enemy, manipulate him into destroying your father, then die a martyr while I'm left holding the pieces of your revenge? It's not like that. Then what is it like?" He was shouting now. "Explain to me how keeping a terminal diagnosis secret from your husband is anything but manipulation." Isabelle stood, facing him with shoulders squared despite the tears. "You want the truth? Fine, yes, I'm dying. Yes, I knew it before we married. And yes, I used that knowledge to my advantage." Her voice grew stronger. "But I didn't lie about why. My mother spent her last years developing treatments that could save thousands of lives. My father buried her work for profit. I have maybe 6 months to make sure her legacy doesn't die with me. 6 months to stop my father from doing to others what he did to our mothers. So you used me. I partnered with you." She stepped closer. "There's a difference. You needed access to my father's empire to destroy it. I needed someone with the resources and motivation to do it quickly, before I'm too sick to see it through. We both benefit. Except you forgot to mention the part where you're dying." "Would you have married me if you knew?" Isabelle demanded. "Would you have been able to look at me without pity? To see me as a partner instead of a victim?" Ethan had no answer. "That's what I thought." She wiped her tears. "I didn't tell you because I needed you to see me as an equal. As someone who could help you win, not as someone to save or mourn. You think I'm that shallow? That I can't care about you and respect you at the same time? I think," Isabelle said carefully, "that you've spent 10 years building walls so high that genuine emotion terrifies you. I think you married me for revenge and told yourself you could keep me at arm's length. But these past few weeks, something shifted. You started to care, and that scared you more than anything my father ever did. She was right, and he hated it. So what now? Ethan asked, suddenly exhausted. We pretend everything's fine? Play house while you're dying and I'm destroying your father? No. Isabelle's voice was firm. Now we stop pretending altogether. I have 6 months, maybe less. I want to spend them fighting for something that matters. Fighting beside someone who understands what it means to lose everything and choose revenge over healing. She crossed the space between them. But I also want to spend them showing you there's another choice. That you can be angry and still be human. That you can seek justice without becoming the very thing you hate. I don't know if I can do that. Then let me try to show you. She took his hands. Please, Ethan. I'm not asking for pity or promises of forever. I'm asking for honesty, for partnership, for 6 months of fighting the good fight together. Ethan looked at their joined hands, then at her face. This woman who'd seen through all his defenses, who'd married him knowing she was dying, who wanted to spend her final months helping him become better than his worst instincts. There's more, isn't there? He asked. Something else your father told me. Isabelle's expression shifted to something like dread. What did he say? He said you have access to documents that prove the medical trial that killed my parents wasn't an accident. That your father deliberately falsified safety data to rush the trial through approval. That you've known all along exactly how guilty he is. Her silence was answer enough. Isabelle. His voice broke. Tell me that's not true. She pulled her hands away, wrapping her arms around herself. I found the documents 2 years ago. Hidden in my mother's personal files. She'd discovered the falsifications before she died, was planning to expose everything, but she got too sick too fast. And you said nothing, did nothing. I was waiting for the right moment, Isabelle's voice cracked. For someone who could actually do something with the information without it being buried by lawyers and NDAs and corporate protections. You were waiting for me, yes. She faced him fully. I was waiting for someone angry enough, powerful enough, and motivated enough to burn it all down. Someone who wouldn't settle for legal settlements or quiet retribution. Someone who would make sure the whole world knew what Leonard Delacqua really is. Ethan stared at her, seeing the full picture for the first time. The careful orchestration, the strategic patience, the way she'd positioned herself perfectly at the intersection of his revenge and her justice. You're terrifying, he whispered. I'm dying, she corrected. I'm just making sure it counts for something. She walked to her bag and pulled out a flash drive. Everything's on here. Falsified safety reports, internal emails, financial records showing the bribes to review board members, enough evidence to not only destroy my father's company but put him in prison for the rest of his life. Isabelle held out the drive. This is what you've spent 10 years searching for. Proof that your parents' deaths weren't bad luck or medical complications. They were murder, corporate negligence at best. This drive ends him completely. Ethan reached for it, but she didn't let go. But know this. If you take it, if you use it, there's no going back. Not for him, not for me, and not for us. This will consume everything. I don't care. Yes, you do. Her eyes searched his face. You care more than you want to admit. That's what makes you different from him. She released the drive into his palm. So I'm giving you a choice. Take your revenge. Burn it all down. Or, she paused, voice wavering, find another way. A way that gets justice without destroying your soul in the process. Ethan looked at the small drive in his hand. Everything he'd wanted for 10 years, contained in a few gigabytes of damning evidence. What would you choose? He asked. Isabelle smiled sadly. I chose you. Everything else is just details. She turned to leave the room but stopped at the doorway. For what it's worth, I wasn't acting. These past few weeks, the mornings together, the conversations, the way I feel when you hold me at night, thinking I'm asleep. That was real. That is real. Isabelle, I love you, Ethan. I know I have no right to, and I know it's the worst possible timing, but I'm dying. So I don't have the luxury of waiting for the perfect moment. She met his eyes one last time. Do what you need to do. I'll support you either way, but please, whatever you decide, do it because it's what you want. Not because it's what the pain demands. Then she was gone, leaving Ethan alone with the flash drive that could destroy Leonard Delacqua, and the terrible realization that his revenge might cost him the only person who'd ever truly understood him. Ethan didn't sleep. He sat in his office all night, the flash drive on his desk like a loaded gun. On his computer screen were 2 documents, a press release that would expose Leonard Delacqua's crimes to the world, and transfer papers that would donate his mother's research foundation to a consortium of non-profit hospitals. Justice or healing, revenge or redemption. He couldn't have both. Dawn broke over Manhattan in shades of gold and pink. Ethan heard soft footsteps behind him. "You stayed up all night," Isabelle said quietly. "Couldn't quiet my mind." He gestured to the screen. "Tell me what to do." "I can't make this choice for you." "Yes, you can." He turned to face her. "You've been making choices for both of us since the beginning. So tell me, Isabelle, what happens if I destroy your father? What does that world look like?" She sat down across from him, pulling her knees to her chest. In the morning light, she looked fragile, shadows under her eyes betraying sleepless nights of her own. "If you release everything, my father goes to prison. Delacqua Industries collapses. Thousands of employees lose their jobs. Ongoing research projects get abandoned. Patients in active treatment trials get disrupted." She paused. "And you get your revenge. But you become the man who destroyed a company out of personal vendetta. Every article, every interview, every business deal for the rest of your life will be filtered through that lens. You'll be known for what you destroyed, not what you built." "I don't care about my reputation, don't you?" Isabelle asked gently. "Or do you just think you shouldn't care? There's a difference." Ethan leaned back, rubbing his face. "What's the alternative? I let him walk away? Pretend the flash drive doesn't exist? No?" Isabelle pulled out her phone, opening a series of files. "The alternative is strategic justice. We use the evidence differently, leverage it to force my father's resignation, restructure the company under new leadership, people who will honor my mother's vision, release just enough information to ensure he can never work in pharmaceuticals again, but not so much that it takes down innocent people with him. That's not enough. It's not revenge," she corrected, "but it is justice, and it leaves room for something better to grow from the wreckage." She stood, walking to the windows. "I've been thinking about legacy a lot lately. What I'll leave behind when I'm gone. What story people will tell about my life." Her voice grew thick. "I don't want to be remembered as the weapon someone used to destroy their enemy. I want to matter for what I built, not what I burned down." Ethan joined her at the window, standing close enough that their shoulders touched. "You think I'm making a mistake? I think you're at a crossroads. 10 years ago, a terrible thing happened to you. You spent a decade preparing to hurt the person responsible. But somewhere along the way, that pain became your identity, your purpose." She looked up at him. "I'm scared that if you take your revenge, there won't be anything left. The pain will be gone, but so will everything else. And if I choose your way, what then? Then you choose to be someone who breaks cycles instead of perpetuating them. Someone who turns trauma into purpose instead of into more pain." She took his hand. "You choose to be the man who sent white roses to a stranger's daughter because he understood loss. Not the man who destroys everything to prove he's strong enough to survive it." Ethan looked at their joined hands, then at the flash drive on his desk. "He killed my parents. Isabelle. I know. He deserves to suffer. He does." Her voice was firm. "And he will. But suffering comes in many forms. You can make him lose everything he cares about without becoming the villain in your own story." She squeezed his hand. 10 years ago, you lost your family. Don't lose yourself finishing what he started." The words hit like a physical blow. Ethan felt something crack inside him, a decade of rage and pain spilling out in a way he'd never allowed before. He sank into his chair and Isabelle knelt beside him, wrapping her arms around him as he finally let himself grieve. They stayed like that as the sun rose higher, 2 broken people holding each other through the weight of impossible choices. Finally, Ethan pulled back, wiping his face. "If we do this your way, I need something in return. Anything. I want you to fight." Isabelle's expression shifted to confusion. "What? You keep talking about your 6 months like they're already over. Like you've accepted that you're dying, and there's nothing to be done." He gripped her shoulders. "I want you to fight. Real treatment, experimental trials, whatever it takes. If I'm choosing healing over revenge, then you have to choose fighting over giving up. Ethan, the tumor is inoperable. I've seen the best specialists in the world. Then we'll find better ones. We'll fund new research, try experimental treatments, go anywhere we need to go. His voice grew desperate. You said you wanted to spend your final months helping me become better. Well, I'm not losing you to some predetermined timeline. Not without a fight. Tears spilled down her cheeks. You can't save me by wishing hard enough. Watch me. He cupped her face. You gave me a choice between revenge and redemption. Now I'm giving you one. Fight for more time, or spend whatever time you have left watching me prove that love is stronger than acceptance. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. He pulled her close. But I'm not ready to lose you, and I don't think you're ready to give up, no matter what you tell yourself. Isabelle buried her face in his chest, and her body shaking with sobs. I'm so scared. I know. Me too. He held her tighter. But we're scared together now. That has to count for something. They stayed there on the floor of his office, holding each other as the city woke up around them. Finally, Isabelle pulled back, wiping her tears. Okay, I'll fight. But you have to promise me something. Anything. Promise me that whatever happens, whether I have 6 months or 6 years, you won't let my father's crimes define you. That you'll build something worth living for, not just something worth dying to destroy. I promise. She kissed him then, soft and desperate and real. When they finally pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his. What do we do now? Ethan looked at the flash drive one last time, then at the woman in his arms. The woman who'd given him everything, including a reason to be better than his worst instincts. Now we call a press conference. That afternoon, every major news outlet packed into the Delacqua Industries boardroom. Ethan stood at the podium with Isabelle beside him. Leonard Delacqua seated behind them, his face ashen. Thank you for coming, Ethan began. I'm here today to announce several significant changes to Delacqua Industries' leadership and direction. He outlined the restructuring, Leonard's immediate resignation, new leadership committed to ethical research practices, the release of previously buried treatment protocols to public domain, and the establishment of an independent ethics board with full access to company records. These changes are the result of extensive negotiations between myself, the board of directors, and Mr. Delacqua. Ethan continued. They represent a commitment to ensuring that Delacqua Industries serves patients first, profits second. Questions erupted from reporters, but Ethan held up a hand. There's one more announcement. My wife Isabelle and I are establishing the Elena Delacqua Foundation, named for her late mother. The foundation will fund research into cancer treatments and provide financial support to families affected by corporate negligence in medical trials. He looked directly at Leonard. This includes families like my own, who lost loved ones to unsafe trials conducted under Mr. Delacqua's leadership. While we cannot undo those tragedies, we can ensure they never happen again. Leonard's face crumpled. It wasn't the public destruction Ethan had dreamed of, but it was something perhaps more devastating. Forced acknowledgement of guilt and the knowledge that his daughter had chosen her husband's family over her own father's legacy. After the press conference, Leonard approached them in the empty boardroom. You could have destroyed me completely, he said to Ethan. Why didn't you? Because, Ethan replied, I married your daughter, and she taught me that some victories cost too much. Leonard turned to Isabelle, his eyes red. I did it all for you. Everything I built, every corner I cut. I wanted to leave you an empire. I never wanted an empire, Dad. Isabelle's voice was sad but firm. I wanted a father who valued people over profits, who honored Mom's memory instead of exploiting it. You gave me everything except what actually mattered. I know. Leonard's voice broke. I know, and I'm sorry. For all of it. He looked at Ethan. Take care of her. Be better than I was. I will, Ethan promised. Leonard nodded once, then walked away, shoulders bowed under the weight of his choices. Isabelle leaned against Ethan. Exhausted. It's done. It's done, he agreed. Do you regret it? Not taking full revenge? Ethan thought about the flash drive still in his pocket. About 10 years of pain and planning that had led to this moment of unexpected mercy. Ask me in 6 years, he said, pulling her close, when you're still here to hear the answer. Isabelle smiled through her tears, and in that moment, Ethan understood what she'd been trying to teach him all along, that the opposite of revenge wasn't forgiveness. It was choosing to build something new from the ashes of what was lost. But as they left the building hand in hand, neither of them noticed the photographer in the crowd, or the headline that would run the next day, or the phone call that would come that evening, turning their tentative peace into something far more complicated. Some battles, it turned out, were just beginning. Ethan answered groggily, then shot upright as the voice on the other end spoke. Beside him, Isabelle stirred. The phone call came at midnight, 3 weeks after the press conference. What is it? He hung up, his hands shaking. That was Dr. Chen, from the Swiss biotech facility, the one we've been negotiating with for experimental treatment trials. Isabelle sat up, suddenly alert. In the moonlight filtering through their bedroom window, she looked ethereal, hope and fear warring on her face. And she wants you to fly to Zurich immediately. They've had a breakthrough. The next 48 hours blurred together. Private jet to Switzerland, consultations with a team of specialists, scans and blood work, and endless waiting. Ethan held Isabelle's hand through it all, watching her face as doctors delivered news in careful clinical terms. Finally, Dr. Chen sat down across from them in her pristine office overlooking the Alps. The tumor, she began, pulling up scans on her computer. It's aggressive, yes, but not inoperable. Not anymore. Isabelle's grip on Ethan's hand tightened. What are you saying? I'm saying that your mother's research, the protocols that were buried by Delacqua Industries, contained a treatment approach we've been refining for the past year. It's still experimental, high risk, but the early trial results are remarkable. Dr. Chen turned the screen toward them, showing before and after scans of other patients. I can't promise anything, but I can give you a fighting chance, if you're willing to take it. Isabelle looked at Ethan, tears streaming down her face. My mother's research, the work my father buried, it might save me? It might, Dr. Chen confirmed gently. The irony isn't lost on any of us. How long? Ethan asked. How long would treatment take? Intensive therapy for 6 months, then ongoing monitoring and maintenance for years. It's not a cure, but it could give you decades instead of months. Isabelle laughed, the sound caught between sob and joy. Decades. Maybe, Dr. Chen cautioned, but you need to understand the risks. The treatment is aggressive. There will be pain, complications, times when you'll wish you'd never started, and success isn't guaranteed. Nothing worth having ever is, Isabelle replied, looking at Ethan. I promised someone I'd fight. I intend to keep that promise. Treatment began the next week. True to Dr. Chen's warning, it was brutal. Ethan stayed by Isabelle's side through every round of chemotherapy, every radiation session, every moment when she was so sick she could barely lift her head. You don't have to stay, she whispered one particularly bad night. This isn't what you signed up for. Yes, it is. He wiped her face with a cool cloth. I signed up for you. All of you. The brilliant strategist, the dying woman, and everything in between. I look terrible. You look alive. He kissed her forehead. That's all that matters. 3 months into treatment, they got the first good news. The tumor had shrunk by 40%. Isabelle cried in Ethan's arms, hope flickering to life for the first time since her diagnosis. It's working, she breathed. It's actually working. Of course it is. He held her close. You're too stubborn to die. She laughed, the sound stronger than it had been in weeks. Look who's talking. The man who spent 10 years planning revenge, then chose mercy instead. You say that like it was easy. Was it? Ethan thought about the flash drive, still in his desk drawer at home. About Leonard Delacqua, who'd sent a single letter of apology 3 weeks ago. About the foundation bearing Elena's name, which was already funding trials that might save countless lives. No, he admitted. Some days I still want to burn it all down. To hurt him the way he hurt me. But you don't. But I don't. He pulled back to look at her face. Thinner now, but still beautiful. Because every time that anger rises up, I remember what you said. About breaking cycles instead of perpetuating them. About being remembered for what we build, not what we destroy. Isabelle cupped his face. You know what I realized during all this? While I've been lying in hospital beds and fighting for every breath? What? That I was wrong. About so many things. Her voice grew thick. I told myself I was helping you, guiding you toward redemption while I sacrificed my remaining time for some greater good. But the truth is, I was running from my own fear. Isabelle. No, let me finish. She took a shaky breath. I accepted I was dying because fighting was terrifying, because trying and failing seemed worse than not trying at all. I wrapped my cowardice in nobility, told myself I was being strategic and pragmatic when really I was just scared. Tears spilled down her cheeks. But you looked at me, dying and defeated, and you said fight anyway. You gave me permission to be scared and brave at the same time. You chose me when I'd already written myself off. Of course I chose you. Why? She searched his face. Why choose a dying woman who manipulated you into marriage, who lied about her diagnosis, who used your pain for her own agenda? Ethan wiped her tears, smiling despite his own. Because you're the only person who's ever seen past my walls. The only one who understood that anger and grief aren't weaknesses. They're just proof that we loved what we lost. Because you taught me that revenge and justice aren't the same thing. That being strong doesn't mean being unbreakable. He pressed his forehead to hers. And because somewhere between the altar and here, I fell completely in love with you. Not despite your flaws, but because of them. Because you're brilliant and broken and brave enough to be both. I love you too, she whispered. So much it terrifies me. Good. He kissed her softly. We'll be terrified together. 6 months after starting treatment, Dr. Chen delivered the news they'd been hoping for. Full remission. The tumor had responded even better than expected. Isabelle would need ongoing monitoring and maintenance treatment, but her prognosis had shifted from months to potentially decades. They celebrated quietly in their hotel room, holding each other as Swiss snow fell outside their window. We did it, Isabelle said, her voice full of wonder. We actually did it. You did it, Ethan corrected. I just held your hand. That's everything. She pulled back to look at him. Ethan, I need to tell you something. You're not leaving me for your incredibly handsome doctor, are you? Because I saw how Dr. Chen looks at you. She laughed, swatting his chest. No, you idiot. I need to tell you about the flash drive. His expression shifted. What about it? I made a copy before I gave it to you. At his stunned look, she continued quickly. I needed insurance. In case you went through with full exposure. In case my father tried to retaliate. In case everything fell apart. Where is it? Safe deposit box in the Cayman Islands. Along with documents that would automatically release everything to media outlets worldwide if anything happened to either of us. Ethan stared at her. You've been protecting us this whole time. I've been protecting you, she corrected. My father may have resigned, but he's not harmless. I wanted to make sure that if he came after you, if he tried to hurt you for what we did, there would be consequences. Isabelle, I know we chose mercy. I know we decided on strategic justice instead of total destruction. But I'm not naive enough to think that means we're safe. So I kept one final card to play, just in case. She took his hands. But I'm telling you now because I don't want secrets between us anymore. No more manipulation, no more strategic withholding. Just honesty. Even when it's complicated. Ethan pulled her into his arms, overwhelmed by the realization that this woman had been protecting him, even while fighting for her own life. What do we do with it? We keep it. Insurance for the life we're building together, but we don't let it define us. We don't let fear of my father or thoughts of revenge poison what we have. Deal. They returned to New York 2 weeks later. The penthouse looked different somehow, less like a cold showpiece and more like a home. Isabelle had slowly added touches of warmth. Plants on the windowsills, colorful throws on the furniture, photographs of their time in Switzerland. One evening, as they stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows watching the sun set over Manhattan, Ethan wrapped his arms around her from behind. Tell me something. That first night, when you told me you knew why I'd married you, did you mean all of it? About seeing through my walls? About believing I could be better? Isabelle leaned back against him, every word, even when I didn't know if I'd live to see it happen. And the part about giving yourself completely and without reservation, especially that part. She turned in his arms. I meant my vows, Ethan, all of them. Even when you thought it was just performance. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. You saw it when you were ready." She smiled. Besides, I wasn't exactly forthcoming about my motives. We were both playing chess when we should have been honest. No more games. No more games, she agreed. Just two broken people building something beautiful from the wreckage. Ethan kissed her as the last light faded from the sky, and for the first time in 10 years, he felt something other than anger. He felt peace, hope, love that wasn't tangled up in revenge or strategy or pain. Just love, pure and complicated and real. Months passed. The Isabelle Delacqua Foundation funded breakthrough research that saved dozens of lives. Delacqua Industries, under new leadership, became a model for ethical pharmaceutical practices. Leonard Delacqua lived quietly in his estate, a broken man watching his daughter thrive with the husband who'd chosen mercy over destruction. 1 year after their wedding, Ethan and Isabelle renewed their vows. This time there were no hidden agendas, no revenge plots or terminal diagnoses or strategic mergers, just two people who'd found each other in the darkest moments of their lives and chosen, against all odds, to build something better. As they stood at the altar, Isabelle spoke her vows with tears streaming down her face. 1 year ago, I promised to give you all of myself. I kept that promise, even when it meant revealing my darkest secrets. You've taught me that strength isn't about hiding our scars. It's about letting someone love us despite them. Ethan's voice was thick with emotion as he responded. You once asked me what I'd choose if I could have revenge or healing. I choose you. Every single day, I choose you. You saved me from becoming the thing I hated most. You taught me that love isn't weakness. It's the bravest thing we can do. They kissed as their friends and chosen family applauded. Two people who'd started as enemies and became each other's salvation. That night, back in their penthouse, Isabelle pulled out the flash drive from its hiding place. What do we do with this? Ethan looked at it for a long moment, then walked to the window and opened it. We let it go. He held the drive over the edge, Manhattan's lights glittering below them like fallen stars. Are you sure? Isabelle asked. I'm sure. He pulled back, closing his hand around the drive. Actually, no, we keep it, not as a weapon or insurance, but as a reminder. Of what? Of how close we came to destroying everything. Of the choice we made to be better. He set it on the shelf next to their wedding photo. Of the day we chose love over revenge. Isabelle wrapped her arms around him, resting her head against his chest. Do you ever regret it? Not taking him down completely? Sometimes, Ethan admitted. But then I remember what I would have lost. Not just you, but myself. The man I want to be instead of the man pain tried to make me. Who is that man? He smiled, pulling her closer. Someone who builds instead of destroys. Who turns trauma into purpose. Who loves a brilliant, stubborn, impossible woman who saved his life by refusing to let him lose his soul. That's a pretty good man to be. I learned from the best. They stood there as the city sparkled below. Two people who'd been brought together by fate and revenge, but stayed together by choice and love. The past would always be part of them. The scars they carried, proof of battles fought and survived. But the future was theirs to write. And they were just getting started. The end.